Hey, what is going on? It is 12 noon on Wednesday, which means it's time for this week's episode of Ask the Instructor. My name is John Christmas. This show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate, and we're here every Wednesday, 12 noon Eastern Time, to help you understand the technical side of the real estate industry. And what we're talking about today is a topic that's definitely a big topic in our post-licensing courses, is listings. And not just what listings are, because if you've already got a real estate license or you're interested in getting a real estate license, you probably already know what a listing is. It's when you're listing a property for sale for a seller. So if you didn't know what they are, now you're up to speed. Now, why is it so important that we get these listings? Well, when you have a listing, that's inventory. That's a product that you're carrying essentially, and now that makes people pay attention to you and your real estate business because you have these listings. Now, granted, any real estate professional, if you're giving access to this property through the MLS, will be able to market and sell this property as well to their clients. But when it's your listing, that helps you get more listings, and you get paid for all these listings when they sell. And overall, it's a lot less work to work with a seller than it is a buyer. Now, why is this so important right now? Is because inventory is super low. Inventory is super tight. There's way more buyers than there are inventory. And what does that do? That drives up pricing, and it also helps these listings sell faster. So these listings are gone before you even realize they're there, unless they're just super overpriced or super undesirable. Otherwise, they sell quickly. So in a more normal market where it's not as much of a seller's market, it takes more time for listings to sell, but now more than ever, they're selling faster because there is such limited inventory, at least in the Tampa market. Your market, it might be more of a buyer's market. It could be more of a seller's market. It could be even more of a seller's market than we're experiencing here. It depends. But any market, buyer's market or seller's market, you want to have listings because, again, listings mean inventory. So what we're going to be talking about today is developing a plan to ensure that you have a constant flow of listings and how you could use those same listings not only to get more sellers and more listings, but also buyers as well. And this is where you really start to build a real estate machine. But without listings, it's a lot harder to do that. So listings is the name of the game today. Stick with us. I'm John Christmo. You're watching Ask the Instructor.
You are watching Ask the Instructor. Absorb the knowledge. Become the expert.
Hey, welcome back to this week's episode of Ask the Instructor. My name is John Carissimo. The show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. We're here every single Wednesday, 12 noon Eastern Time. If you're not hit yet, subscribe. Hit that little subscribe button so you get notifications whenever it is that we go live. There's a little bell icon you could hit there, or hit the thumbs up button if you'd like today's show and what we've got to share with you. So, listings. Again, this is an agreement. This is a contract that you're getting with a seller. You enter into a contract with the seller with your obligations of the contract to market the property to potential buyers as well as to other realtors that have potential buyers. And then when the property sells, you get compensated for your efforts of marketing the property. You get paid some sort of commission for marketing the property, even if another agent is the one that finds the buyer for the property. And that's why listings, any market, buyer's market, seller's market, good market, bad market, doesn't matter what you want to call the market, listings are always going to be an essential part of your real estate business because the listings are your inventory, and your listings are the catalyst to help you get more listings, to help you get more buyers, to help you grow your business. But without listings, it's, again, constraining your business. So, again, this is your agreement with the seller. Now, how do we do that? How do we get in front of these sellers? The first thing that you want to remember, so let's talk about the realtors, the Association of Realtors. They give us this statistic. It's another reason why you should have listings. But it says on average to close a buyer, on average of working time, according to the Association of Realtors, it's 24 hours. Whereas when you're working with a seller, it's 8 hours. 8 hours of time working this from listing the property to closing versus with a buyer from first working with them to actually closing 3 times as much time. This is why you need to have sellers in your business. because you could close 3 times as many sellers in the amount of time it takes you to close one buyer. And that's just average statistics from the Association of Realtors nationwide. And look, maybe this is a little bit longer, maybe this one's a little bit shorter, but I highly doubt you're able to work with buyers faster than sellers, again, in any real estate market. So what a lot of people don't take into account is what might make this 8 hours a little bit higher than maybe working with a buyer. It's a lot easier to find buyers. Why? Because they don't have to buy. You're just simply asking them to look at, to consider acquiring something, consider adding, which they might be interested in looking. They maybe have no interest in buying, but they have interest in looking, and that maybe is a part of the reason why this is such a longer time compared to working with sellers. But with a seller, you're convincing them to sell their largest asset, or most likely their largest asset. Usually somebody's home is their largest asset, or if it's not the largest, it's one of the largest. So you're convincing them, or not necessarily convincing them, because they're really convincing themselves, but you're convincing them to use you, to trust you in the sale of their largest or one of their largest assets. So you're not necessarily convincing them to sell. If they're having the conversation with you, they're already kind of convinced themselves, even if they're not ready to make that decision yet. But now you need to convince them that you are the right person to help them sell the biggest asset that they own. So I would argue that on top of that 8 hours, it's going to take a little bit more preceding action, a little bit more information and education and enlightenment and marketing, or whatever you want to call it, leading up to the contract. A lot more follow-up, a lot more that you're contacting them before they get serious about making a decision. Because basically once they sign that listing contract, that's when it's really happening. That's when the house is going on the market. That's when the house is going to be opened up to buyers, as well as their neighbors, as well as anybody who wants to see the property. So that's a significant step, a significant milestone when they're signing that listing agreement just to open it up. Not even selling the house, but just putting the property on the market. So leading up to that, that's where you're going to have more of this follow-up. And part of the follow-up, what's really important, is just the organization behind this. Because you might have people that are ready right now. Now, those are the ones that are the hardest to lose track of, are the people that are available and ready right now. So these usually don't get forgotten because they're the low-hanging fruit, they're the easy money. But what about that person that's 3 months out? They might not be low-hanging fruit now, but maybe in 2 to 3 months, maybe 4 or 5 months. It depends. Just because they tell you 3 months doesn't mean 3 months exactly. It might mean just a couple of weeks. It might mean 3 years. We don't really know, but we have to kind of gauge where they're at and how ready it is that they are, and have information we could give them. Have information we could disseminate to them that helps them understand who we are better, helps them understand how our business can help them better, and understands how we could seamlessly get them to that end goal that they're desiring. So that's all part of our marketing, our branding, our messaging that we're sending out to them, leading up to ultimately a listing appointment where you get a listing contract signed. But again, this is all about organization, because it might be 3 months, might be 6 months, might be 1 year plus. And you should have some way to organize this, either some sort of contact management system with tags or lists or filters or something like that, where you could identify who are your low-hanging fruit, who are the next low-hanging fruit, and then who are the people that are further out that you don't want to spend as much time on right now, but you want to make sure that you don't neglect them. So 6 months to a year down the road, these people in this boat here are going to be now in your now column. This is all about having a pipeline. So having an organized pipeline, that's really important with listings, because like I said, listings are going to be more about the long game. This follow-up that you're doing in advance. Now you might wonder, okay, well, what are the ways that I can follow up? Regardless of where they're at in this process, what methods do I have to stay in touch with them. And if you're wondering how you even meet these people in the first place, we're going to get to that. We're getting there. So stick with me. So what are some of the things it is you could do to follow up, to stay in touch with them? Just listing out a bunch of little simple things. The probably one that makes the most sense is the phone, either a phone call or a text message. Text messages work as well. Text messages, if they communicate through text messages, then you can use text messages. If they never respond to your text messages, hey, maybe don't send them text messages still because they're obviously not a texter if they're responding. Or maybe they don't pick up your phone calls, but they answer your text messages. Use your common sense and figure out what methods of communication they like and use those. Don't worry about what communication methods you like. You like whatever communication methods that work. Trust me on that there. Especially until you get to the point where you're ready to turn away business, you like whatever communication methods that work, that get the job done. Because if you don't, if you're like, oh, I don't like talking on the phone, texting is way more efficient. Well, what about when you have a client that doesn't like texting, they'd rather just talk on the phone? Are you just not going to do business with them? Well, if you're ready to turn away business, if your business is successful enough where you can turn away business, then yes, you could do that. You could define your own reality where you say, no, we only deal in text messages only because we're hip and cool and new. Or if you're not quite at that point yet, or maybe you never want to get to that point, maybe you don't mind making the phone call, or even if you hate making the phone call, still make the phone call because that's what's going to get the business done. What else? We've got mail, whether this is a postcard, whether this is a letter. This could be a market update. We have the 21st century version of mail, email. Now, I wouldn't pick one of these over the other. I would do both. Now, obviously, for most people, email is going to be a faster, more direct way to communicate. But especially for some of these clients that are farther out that you're following up with, that are maybe 6 months to a year down the road, this mail piece could maybe be some sort of monthly market report of, hey, what's going on in the neighborhood? What homes have sold? What homes went on the market? What homes got taken off the market? What does the inventory look like? How many people have moved to this area? Whatever statistics that a homeowner might be interested in, that could be something that you send out in the mail. And that might not be the end-all be-all, but it's another piece of the puzzle. That's what you're doing. You're trying to take all these pieces of the puzzle, the phone, the mail, the email. You could run ads, and there's way that you could do really hyper-local targeting with a lot of these online digital ad platforms, whether it's Facebook or Google or otherwise. So running ads is another way to ensure that they remember who it is that you are. But that's the follow-up. And there's a lot of other ways. You have personal visits even. Hey, I was just in the neighborhood, figured I would stop by and ring the doorbell. That could be where you're initially meeting them. Maybe you're door knocking a neighborhood, and that's how you initially meet this person who is interested at some point in the future in selling their home. It could be an inquiry off of your website. It could be a lot of different ways. But once you do get that lead, use as many methods as possible to stay in contact and stay in touch with them to make sure you maintain the relationship. Because I've said this before, if you want to turn a contact into a contract, the only difference between the words contact and contract is the letter R. And you know what that R stands for? It stands for relationship. As you deepen the relationship, you open up the possibility for a contract. You find somebody that you love, well, you deepen that relationship, and then comes the opportunity for the contract of marriage. It's the same thing with your clients. They start out as just somebody that you know, somebody that you're familiar with. But how many times have you been in a situation where a client is maybe hesitant at first? Or you've been hesitant to just get in bed with somebody to, figuratively speaking, to do business with them without really knowing them, without having much of a relationship. If you don't have that relationship, people might not feel comfortable doing business with you. And that's why a lot of listings are lost, is because the agent doesn't go out of their way to build a relationship. And a lot of times it's just because of lack of organization, just because they're not ready to buy right now, or sell right now, I should say, which probably means they're ready to buy as well, because remember, they're probably not going to sell their home and become homeless. They're selling their home to go buy another home. And that's all the more reason why you should have listings, because you're getting them. You're getting somebody who owns a home, who probably has equity in their home, who equity being money they have in their home that they're going to get when they sell the home, so they have money to put as a down payment on the next home. And now not only can you get a commission for selling their home, you could also get a commission for representing the buyer, should that be the case, should you find the buyer. So then you get double commission already, but then you got the opportunity for triple commission, because now that seller that just sold their home, you're helping them buy their next home. And really even an opportunity for quadruple commission if the home that they're buying is also your listing. That would be really rare. I don't know if that's ever happened where somebody has got a quadruple commission contract because they represented the seller and buyer in both of these deals, but it is possible. And even if you don't get any additional transactions right there, let's say the seller is just one contract, they're maybe moving out of state and they're not even buying anything, they're maybe just going to move somewhere and go rent someplace, and so you're only getting the one commission. That doesn't mean you should burn the bridge and burn the relationship with them, because what happens when they want to buy again? Or even if they've moved out of the area, that doesn't mean they won't move back. Just talking to a friend last night who moved to Orlando, and he said, yeah, I'm thinking of selling my house here and moving back to Tampa. People do that all the time. That opportunity is there, but if you burn that bridge, if you destroy that relationship, or I should really just say neglect the relationship, because it's usually not with malignant intent that you're saying, oh, I never want to work with them again. It's just you get busy and you forget about them, and you neglect them, and then they go find a new realtor because you obviously don't care about them anymore. At least that's how they feel. Don't let them feel that way. Make sure you follow up with them, stay in touch, because not only can you get repeat business from them, but you could also get business from their friends, from their family who might need to buy or sell real estate. And even if that's not in your particular market, remember referral fees. Never forget about referral fees. Everybody is an opportunity, even if they're outside of your market, through referral fees, that you could refer them to another agent and earn a referral fee by referring them to another agent. So that's huge as well. Now, for getting these listings in the first place, these all work as well, whether you're door knocking to make a personal visit, just saying, hey, I'm John, I'm here to introduce myself, I'm the specialist that just got assigned to this area by my brokerage. It's one of the pickup lines it is you could possibly use. There's all kinds of stuff you could do for door knocking. We've done tons of episodes on door knocking before. Check those out. Search door knocking on our Success Center, and you'll find out if you're interested in doing something like that. Obviously, you could run ads, but those cost money, so you might not be ready to do that first and foremost. Door knocking just costs your time. Now, emails, well, who is it that you're emailing? Well, you can't just go buy an email list and then just spam that email list, because that literally, by definition, is spam. It's spam unless you have permission to send that person an email, if you're sending out some mass marketing email without their permission. So, can't really use the email to get the leads unless you already have some sort of sphere of influence. Maybe you're emailing past clients saying, hey, just a reminder that I would really appreciate any referrals, because remember, we can't compensate them for referrals unless they have a real estate license. Mail. That's one you definitely could use. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. I really want to get more in detail, though, on these strategies for finding these clients in the first place. And what I would say I would do as a strategy if I were just starting out trying to get listings, or maybe you've had listings before, but you've never had a consistent source of listings. So this is going to be basically a strategy based around a farm area. Now, what are we doing with this farm area strategy here? Well, first, we need to choose the location. And we choose the location based on the number one factor of turnover. Don't consider farming a neighborhood until you've looked at the turnover. And the way you calculate the turnover, it's a percentage. You take the sales, divide it by the homes. Sales divided by homes. And what that's going to do is give you a percentage of how many homes have sold within the last 6 months, year, whatever time frame you're looking at this at. So you look at how many sales in the last 6 months or how many sales in the last year, divide that by the total number of homes, and then you do that for all the neighborhoods you're considering, because you want to find the neighborhood that has the highest percentages of turnover. If the neighborhood you're farming, that you're trying to solicit listings from, has a very low turnover, you're going to have a much more difficult time getting listings because nobody wants to sell. That's what turnover tells you, is how often people want to sell in that neighborhood. So that's your number one factor when you're choosing a farm area, is what is the turnover rate. Before you invest anything, any time or money in the neighborhood, look at what is the turnover. Is this even going to be a good return on my investment, or should I go to this neighborhood over here instead? Because maybe this neighborhood has a 20% turnover ratio versus this one only having 5% turnover. Why would you waste your time in the 5% turnover neighborhood when just down the street there's another neighborhood where there's 4 times as many home sales going on if it's a 20% turnover? So look at turnover first and foremost, then consider everything else. But if it's got a bad turnover, if it's got a low rate of turnover, if there's a low amount of sales, and this is why you want to do it as a percentage, because not all neighborhoods will have the same number of homes. And if it's got more homes but less sales, well, what does that mean? That's why you got to turn it into a percentage, so you can have a standardized number for all the neighborhoods you're looking at. So that's number one. Find the location, and again, the number one factor you consider before everything else is what is the turnover, and then everything else it is you might consider when you're trying to find the perfect neighborhood. You want to figure out, okay, what are the best neighborhoods I could target? I would also look to see if there's any agents dominating that area. If you look in the MLS and look at that neighborhood to see if there's any particular office or any particular agent that's already getting a bunch of listings, really kind of just checking the competition or market share. Because if there's already an agent that gets almost all the listings in that neighborhood, they're probably doing a really good job marketing and farming in that neighborhood. And yeah, you might be able to take some business from them, but you're going into a bloody battle when there might be another neighborhood that also has a high turnover rate that nobody's touched, that nobody's farming, that are basically just a bunch of orphan homeowners that don't have any realtor to take care of them. That's the neighborhoods that you want to find there. So that's the second qualifier I'd look for. Number one, find the turnover, the highest rates of turnover. Then number two, try to find the lowest market share, where there's not any agent dominating that particular market. Now, once you've picked out your area, your farm area, the location it is that you're going to market to, the first thing I would do after you look at this digitally, so you're going to view it digitally, with Google Maps and looking at some of the properties on the MLS and all this type of stuff, maybe looking at some satellite views and street views if they're available, but that doesn't really match driving the neighborhood. That's what I would start out doing. I would start out by driving the neighborhood, driving every single street in that neighborhood, so you start to get familiar with that area. Now, this isn't necessary, but if you want to be able to call yourself an expert in that neighborhood, you better at least step foot in there. So I would say not even just drive the neighborhood, but after you've driven the neighborhood and got the lay of the land, that's where I would then walk the neighborhood. I would walk the neighborhood. Walk the sidewalks. Walk up and down. You don't have to door knock or anything like that yet, but just walk the neighborhood. Get to understand it. Breathe the air that the people there are breathing. Get to understand what it is they might like about the neighborhood, what it is they might not like about the neighborhood, so that way you better understand where these homeowners are coming from. Because if you don't understand where these homeowners are coming from, how are you supposed to connect with them? How are you supposed to develop that relationship when you don't understand who they are and what they represent and what it is that they want? And again, just trying to get in that neighborhood is going to help you better understand where these people are coming from, because you're literally walking through the neighborhood that they're coming from. And then if you really want to take it to the next step, that's where I would then say to door knock the neighborhood. Drive the neighborhood, then walk the neighborhood, then knock the neighborhood. Go out there knocking on doors to introduce yourself. Hey, my name is John Carissimo from ABC Realty, and I'm here to introduce myself as the expert that just got assigned to this neighborhood. I'm going through the area just to make sure everyone's aware of their current home values, as the market has, as you know, been changing quite a bit. Let me ask you this. How long have you guys been living here? And you just strike up a conversation. We've done tons of episodes on door knocking before, and I know it can be intimidating, and that's why I'm saying drive the neighborhood first and walk the neighborhood first before you even door knock. But this is a great way when you're starting out That's not going to cost you any money. It's just going to cost you your time. Maybe you get some flyers made up or some business cards, but let's be honest, you have those things anyway. So this literally is costing you basically no money to find potential business. Now, there's going to be a lot of rejection. So be prepared for that. Most of these people aren't going to need your services right now. The chances of you knocking on a door and just happening to find a homeowner that wants to sell right now are probably 1 in 100. So what does that mean? It means you should probably knock on at least 100 doors to hopefully find one homeowner that is ready to sell right now. And sometimes it's even slimmer pickings than that. You might be knocking on 150, 200 doors to find that one homeowner that needs to sell. But when you find that one homeowner that needs to sell, now all of a sudden, that's maybe a $10,000, $15,000, maybe even only $5,000 commission, but even only at $5,000, that's still probably going to make it worth all the time you spent knocking on all those other doors for even just $5,000 in commission, let alone a $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 commission as we start to get into higher price points. But let's say you knocked on 100 doors. You found one seller. What about the other 99 doors? What about the other 99? And that's where, again, the follow-up comes into play. And having that organization, because as you're talking to people, asking them that question of how long have you lived there? And yes, you could look up that information, but let's not be weird. Let's have a conversation with them. Hey, how long have you lived here? If they don't want to tell you, fine, you could go spend the time it takes to look it up. But really, this is, even though you could already find that information, this is a great way to start connecting with them. Hey, how long have you lived here? It's an easy question for them to answer. And well, what do you like about the neighborhood? What do you not like? Have you ever considered moving? If you were to move today, where would you go? Just little things like that to understand what is their urgency. If they said they just moved in there 2 months ago, they're probably not planning on moving out anytime soon if they just bought that house. Or maybe these houses, maybe some of them you come across are renters. And you talk to them, well, let me ask you this. Why is it that you haven't considered buying? What's been holding you back there? Would you consider buying? Again, just starting a conversation. And the expectation isn't that every person is going to be a deal. The expectation when you're doing door knocking is that you meet people. So when they answer the door, guess what? You met them. It doesn't always go according to plan. And again, very few of these people that you actually talk to will need to sell their home right now. But everybody you talk to is a potential for business someday, and being organized in your follow-up so that way you can appropriately stay in touch with these people is going to help maximize your pipeline so that way you have more business than you know what to do with. That's a good problem to have. You want that problem. That is a problem that is easy to, well, not necessarily easy to solve, but it's a good problem to have because it's a problem that's producing. You don't want problems that take away. You want problems that bring you wealth and happiness and the opportunity for growth, and that's what those problems bring you. But anyways, so yes, the follow-up. Now, door knocking, it is time consuming. So one of the other strategies I would implement, I would still recommend, if you're farming an area, I would highly, 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 highly recommend that you door knock that neighborhood. You might not feel comfortable doing it right away, especially if you've never door knocked before, but I would recommend it because there's no better way to meet your potential customers than actually meeting them face to face. And yeah, it's a little weird sometimes. You're knocking on the door. You're obviously interrupting people. You're always going to be interrupting people. At no point are people just sitting there waiting for somebody to just show up at their door. Or if they are waiting for somebody to show up at the door, they're probably not waiting for you to show up at their door and talk to them about real estate. But that's all you're there. You're just there to, hey, strike up a conversation about real estate. I know you probably don't need to sell right now. That's a great line to take the stress off of things. Because we've all had those door-to-door salesmen that have came by before and said, hey, I got a great deal for you today. It's only today. You can only sign up with me. You got to do it now. Otherwise, you basically are dumb and you're going to lose forever. No, we're not there to give them that ultimatum. We're just like, hey, look, I know you're probably not, you don't need to sell right now. Most of the people I talk to don't need to sell. I'm just here simply to introduce myself. Just got to get to know you, how long you've lived here, and if there is anybody way I could help you, or maybe you have a friend or family member that's in the need of some real estate services, I would love the opportunity to wow them and to eventually someday also be able to wow you as well. How great does that sound? And again, it's the no pressure. Hey, look, I know you don't need to sell. We're not there to convince people to sell. We're not there to force people to sell. We're there to provide the best option for them when they are ready to sell. And that's the mentality it is that you want to have behind all of your messaging, branding, and everything it is that you're doing. And then, of course, you could run ads online. That one we've done whole episodes before of ads online as well, because we get really in depth of all the different ways it is that you could run advertising campaigns. But look, that's about all the time it is that we've got for today. So if you want to learn more about listings, make sure you take our post-licensing course. Post-licensing is a requirement for your first renewal after you get your real estate license. You're eligible to take this course as soon as you get your real estate license, and we recommend taking it as soon as you get your real estate license because you learn about valuable information like this. I bet you wish this was covered in your pre-licensing course, but unfortunately it's not, because you got to pass your exam before any of this information even matters. Until you pass your exam, you can't sell real estate. But once you've passed your exam, now the Florida Real Estate Commission says, hey, we'll give you some hours for learning about real-world topics. And that's what post-licensing is about, learning the real-world side of running your business to be able to build a successful real estate empire. So if you're ready to do that, sign up for our post-licensing course. You can call us 813-333-2676. Again, that's 813-333-2676. You can also find out more information online at postflorida.com. Postflorida.com will take you right over to our information center on post-licensing. Again, that link is postflorida.com, or just call us 813-333-2676. Or if you need to get your real estate license, we can help you with that as well. 813-333-2676. That's about all the time we've got for today. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you on Friday for State of Real Estate.
The most powerful tool to study for your real estate exam is the Question Simulator from Tampa School of Real Estate. We've used our years of experience in preparing students for the Florida real estate exam to bring you the most powerful exam study tool available. In the Question Simulator, you'll be able to go directly to a particular unit so you can focus on the sections where you need the most practice. We have also included the percentages of each unit so you know which units are the most important for your real estate exam. Every question will immediately give you detailed feedback, which is almost always more important than the question or the answer themselves. After completing all the questions in a particular unit, you can go through question by question and review any that you've gotten wrong. You could also print out a report at the end of each quiz. The Question Simulator from Tampa School of Real Estate is 100% mobile compatible, so you can practice with test questions anywhere you have your phone with you. Enroll now at questionsimulator.com and get ready to pass your exam.